Hello, my name's Colin Crithers, and I'm a student reporter and broadcaster at the University of Iowa. As a journalist, my job is to tell stories, while also balancing everything else going on in my life as a student. But no one tells our stories. So, my goal is to tell the stories of the student journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers all across the country. Let's walk the student beat. Welcome in. Today we're walking the student beat with Ashley Davidson of Oregon. Ashley, thank you for joining me. How's it going today?
Yeah, of course. Going well. How about you, Colin?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good today. The time difference is pretty fun right now from the West Coast all the way over to the East Coast. I know told you I go to the University of Iowa, but I'm back home in Cincinnati, so we got that 3-hour difference going right now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I know, but it's all good. So happy to be here today. But first, if you don't mind, just introducing yourself, some of the basics, and the journalistic outlets you work with.
Yeah, my name's Ashley Davidson. I'm going to be a senior at the University of Oregon. I'm helping and assisting running the Duck TV program, which is a student broadcast program, as well as being a part of KWVA 88.1 sports radio at the University of Oregon, as well as the Daily Emerald newspaper and University of Oregon's Women's in Sports Communications. So,
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, that's a lot going on there. We're going to dive
lots going
into
on.
it. I'm going to ask you about how we balance all of that. But first, I want to ask you how you got involved with all this stuff. But really, what was the root start of why you wanted to enter into journalism?
So it's actually really funny. I like to tell people that I fell on my face into journalism because I knew I wanted to work in sports, and I started the sports med route because I was like, oh, doctor, like, that's, the big time job that makes the parents proud. But I was there for 2 days in the human phys school and said, this is not for me. Couldn't do it. And I really liked my journalism or my writing classes and my video production classes in high school. And that's what I told my academic advisor. I was like, I can't be in this major. She asked me what I liked doing in high school. I said I really liked the sports lit class that we had in high school. And then I was super into video production, doing like the morning news show, that kind of thing. And she's like, you should try Duck TV. And so I tried it. And then I went in feeling so intimidated and just ended up loving it. I wanted to keep doing better, keep doing it. And I found all these little things like the sports radio. And I just found this love for journalism just being in the Duck TV program. And I went to a journalism major, and the rest is kind of history. So,
Sounds good. Now, what is it about the journalism, all the different things that you do that you love specifically with the storytelling side of it?
well, with the storytelling side, I like to tell the stories that, you don't see on the surface. And I think it's really cool to see an inside story that a lot of people don't get to see. So that's, the things that go into like being a student athlete and telling stories that just make people so interested and just look at things from another perspective and go, wow. And so being able to share another person's story and see what like another athlete, for example, is going through and like some cool things that they're doing. It's just like the good stories that people want to see. Sometimes they're not all great, but it's providing everyone with a little bit of a, inside story to, whatever it is that you're talking about. And I think that's really cool to be the person to share that.
Keeping on the story side for a second, is there a favorite story you've told or event that you've covered?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're gonna
I
have to like backtrack a lot, I assume.
Yeah, I've covered a lot, and I've been really lucky that the University of Oregon has given me an outlet to be able to cover so many cool events. Like I did a WNBA preseason game last season. It was for this season, but it was for the preseason. And I did that in the spring, and that was so much fun. It was really cool seeing a little more professional atmosphere, but also going to our team made it to the Rose Bowl in football this past season, and so that was a little hard seeing my team lose the whole game. It was still so much fun to cover, and being able to see Pasadena, that was also really cool. And being able to tell, you know, bring some light to a not so fun story for the University of Oregon, it was still a great story to cover.
Absolutely. For the first episode I did for this podcast, I talked to a guy named Noah Weisskopf from Ohio State. So he was on the other side of it, So I already asked him how he felt about the Rose Bowl, the whole experience. But despite the loss, how'd you feel about it?
I'm not gonna lie, it still hurts, but despite the loss, it was really great, honestly. Um, Getting able to go and travel with the team and be able to cover that story because it's such a big event. Like Oregon hasn't had a national title, and so that was like our step closer to it, and everybody had so much hope, and our atmosphere was just crazy. Being able to be right in the middle of that was absolutely wild, and it was cool to cover the story for sure.
Absolutely. Being right in the midst of a season where even watching from an outside perspective, it felt like, all right, who you can even beat Oregon? So trying to turn stories in that way. Did you guys ever feel that? And how did you be able to tell different stories throughout the season without feeling repetitive?
That was the thing I will say was the biggest challenge was it's awesome being an undefeated team, but it's also hard when you're trying to tell the same story in different ways because, a win is a win and, it's always great to win. But, when you're 13 and 0 in a season, you have to have 13 stories that aren't just Oregon won against this team, Oregon won against this team. It's trying to find Oregon won against this team and why that matters, and also trying to find stories within stories. So, like, for example, I remember there was one where I just solely talked about Oregon's defense and the amount of points they gave up or they like let score. It was like probably nine, I think it was 9 points in 4 games that they didn't give up. And I was like, that's a huge story. Like, the defense is just killing it right now, on top of like, you have another story where it's like, this is a whole new team. Last year, it was a completely different team, different quarterback, different O line. Like, it's building, trying to find stories within stories was, I think, the biggest challenge this year. And, you know, at the end of the day, I was able to bring it all together. And so I think that was probably one of the bigger learning experiences I've gotten out of this year.
Yeah, we're gonna keep going to some more learning experiences. First of all, applaud to you. Congrats with that. But without our getting away with some other things, talk to me about Duck TV first. What exactly that looks like from behind the scenes.
Oh, Duck TV is my baby. That is I couldn't say enough good things about that program. I started when I was a freshman, and when I started as a freshman, it was very rare to have freshmen in the program because a lot of people don't find it until like their sophomore year. It's very competitive. So it is a class that you get credits for, but you can't just register for the class like any other class. You have to email the professor and get in with instructor approval. So I did that my freshman year. I was like, I'm um moving from human phys, and this sounds like something I really want to do. Got into the program. Every Monday, everybody gets a studio time that they're able to say whatever they want in there. They can talk about sports, they can talk about like celebrity news, they can talk about world news, politics, whatever. And, everybody gets I want to say, they get an anchor block. And so they can have, usually people take around 2 minutes of that time, but it's a 5 minute slot, and every week someone makes a new anchor segment. And you can learn the production side of that too by like running teleprompter or using the switcher and operating switches in the control room and seeing the production side of it too, which I think is really awesome that people get to see that. And then during the week, we cover games and we cover news events. So you can go and cover any like Oregon athletic event. You can cover whatever's going on around campus or like even in the city of Eugene. Like, I know um, there was a lot of people discussing like recent protests around the campus and around the city of Eugene. People were out covering that. You put packages together, and every Monday we watch some of the packages in front of the entire class. You get feedback in front of everyone, and it's a really good opportunity to like get feedback from your peers and from our professor. And I feel like everybody's just it's become a lot of like a family and a community, and it like everybody just like does everything together outside of Duck TV and like within Duck TV. So I feel like getting that feedback from those peers is what makes it, you know, a little bit more of a learning environment, and people usually stay in the class like term after term. And yeah, I think you're able to cover some really cool events too, which is really awesome. And you're really able to get that hands-on experience with broadcast.
Yeah, I love always hearing that like these programs feel like a family because I could say the same thing with DITV at Iowa. I love my family over there, but expand more about the competitiveness of it and how exactly that works. Like, I guess it's a class. Is there any prerequisites? Is it just a true application? How does that work?
So there aren't any prerequisites with it. I wish there was because now we have a class where they teach you how to use the cameras that we use in that class because we're all our own MMJs. So
Mhm.
we record everything that we take, we film it, we make our own audio, our own scripts, we do everything. So there's now a class offered at the University of Oregon where you can learn how to use those cameras, and I really wish that was a prerequisite before everybody started in Duck TV because we are learning how to do them all ourselves and like literally we'll be at like a basketball game trying to figure out how to learn how to use these cameras. So yeah, I mean, there is a competitive sort of atmosphere at times, especially when it comes to like making packages, because it's like, oh, I want to make this amount of packages a week, and that's more than this person made, so that because the more I would say that the program is you get what you put into it, and the more that you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And the more experience you'll get, the more connections you'll make, the more credibility you'll get. And I feel like there's some times where some people fight for that credibility, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of people, especially, and I see this a lot in student journalism, is that everybody's trying to support each other because it's such a competitive industry. And so I feel like at the end of the day, everyone's there to help each other. And whether people thrive in that competitive atmosphere and they're helping each other just like with friendly competition, that's good as like compared to like not so friendly competition. And I feel like that's something Duck TV and other outlets I've worked with see a lot is that it's more of a friendly competition. And at the end of the day, everybody's just there to help each other out.
Absolutely. Just keep lifting everyone up.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
is this the first, at the top of this, you mentioned all the things you're involved with. Is this the first program you got involved with?
Yes. I feel
Okay.
like I found a lot of people through this program and they're like, oh, you should check out this. You should check out this. But
Yeah, that's what
yeah,
I was going to ask about how you started getting into the other programs and everything. So it's just pretty much friend of a friend type thing.
pretty much. I mean, the journalism school at Oregon is like I feel like it's a pretty small school compared to some of the other schools, but like it's like one of those things where it's like you're in like a small high school again and you know everybody in that school. You have like this class with this person, this class with this person, you're in this program with this person. And so multiple people are in multiple programs. And so they're like, oh, you should come check out this with me. Oh, I'm going to this meeting. You should come check out this club. So that's like the newspaper. There's magazines that people create in the school of journalism. And so I feel like I found a lot of those outlets that I work with through other people and being like, oh, you want to add to your resume? You should totally join this. So,
Yeah, and I know
yeah.
one of the things is also the radio that you mentioned. I believe KWVA, is that correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So with the radio, what do you do for them? Are you more of an anchor, broadcasting? What's your role there?
So the radio does a lot of play-by-play, I would say is like the most common thing. So play-by-play, I do sideline with them. So we have a partnership with the Big Ten Plus network. And so do we do I that's kind of my niche is more sideline because I personally like more on camera than radio because I have so much respect for everybody who does play-by-play commentary because that is not an easy job. But we do that. We also host a thing called Quack Smack, and so it's literally just us. It's usually about 3 to 4 people who go on. It's like a podcast sort of thing, but it's a podcast radio show sort of mix, and you just talk about whatever, whether that's stuff going on in sports, whether that's I remember I listened to one Quack Smack, and it was when I was first getting into it, and the very first line they opened up with, "So who else thinks this professor is the worst human being to walk the planet?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's so fun." But I loved it because it's just like it's about like campus news, and I just think that they do it in such a fun way that, it engages people.
Yeah, talk to me a little more about that partnership between the radio and Big Ten Plus, because I know on our side, I was doing like my exit meeting at Big Ten Plus, and I had the idea brought up by our boss, like, I wonder if we get our radio involved more so we have more talent involved. I don't know how that partnership works for you guys.
Yeah, it's a new thing. We started it this past year, And I know that our directors work a lot closer with, the people who are we're coordinating Big Ten Plus with, and their Big Ten Plus has been really nice in working with us. They threw us like a little pizza party and like talked to us about like what our role is going to be and how they just want to help us. So Big Ten Plus Network has been really great to work with, and so we're able to do sideline coverages, and we're also able to do play-by-play coverages, which is awesome for those trying to get into radio. And so when it's not the bigger games where they have those like already like employed broadcasters coming to cover that game, it's really awesome that they're giving us an opportunity to like be able to do that and having that experience to be able to do like live sideline reporting that is going to be aired to a bigger audience is huge. And I think that that's so great that they're giving that outlet to us college students. And they're also letting the production side do it. So they have like camera people who like we have a program called Quack Video that does the camera work at games, and that usually is like displayed on the big screens and like the jumbotrons. They're letting them operate cameras for the live stream, and I think that that's so cool that they're giving everybody that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, one, it's a great opportunity for everyone, great experience, but from at least what I would say, it's a lot of fun too, being able to cover and call those games.
That's all. Yeah, no, I agree. Have you been able to work with Big Ten Plus and like doing that kind of thing with on your side?
Yeah, so I do our student radio and Big Ten Plus as well. They don't really have as much of a partnership, but I've been able to call games, play by play, color, and a little bit of sideline for Big Ten Plus.
That's so cool.
It is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It is cool because the other thing is I went to the high school with about 800 kids or so. It's decent size, right? But we
Mhm.
didn't have all the sports we have at Iowa. So I get up there and they're like, "Hey, go call field hockey." And I've never watched field hockey in my life.
That's good for you though. It's important to know those like sports that just aren't as popular like football, basketball. Like
Yeah.
I had to learn tennis for the first time this year. I was like, this is so fast paced. I have no idea what I'm doing. But as soon as I picked it up, I'm like, great, we can work with this.
It
So
doesn't help with tennis when they're like on their singles matches because I had to pick that up this year as well. Not the call, but the cover it as a reporter. And when they're
mhm.
on their singles matches, they have like six different games going on at once, like trying to play
Yeah,
all of those.
it's great. There's a lot of places your eyes need to be at. So
You know,
I
yeah,
yeah.
trying to pick up on all those courts at once so difficult. We're like, I don't know the setup at Oregon. I feel like I've seen it once. It's very nice if I remember right, but at least at Iowa, there's like this one little like wall in between like the two sides, and you can like go on top of it. And that's the only way I can see what's going on in all of them. I'm like on one side, have to shoot all the way down, and then if I notice one court's got a closer score, I got to run down there with the camera and try to get there in time.
Yeah, no, we have a similar setup where it's like ours is a net that's in it. So there's three
Hmm.
courts on one side, and then there's a net that you can like walk through, and then there's another three courts. But the thing was for shooting with me is that if it was trying to figure out shooting because you can't track that just going back and forth. So trying to like figure it out from one angle and then also trying to get the person on the other side of the courts and trying to work on the focus with the net in between, like so many different little things to figure out.
Tennis is a lot more difficult to shoot than I think I even realized before I did it for the first time this past year. Is when like that's when I first filmed tennis, and it was, yeah, it's pretty difficult. I gotta admit.
But it keeps you engaged, I will say. Like it
Yeah.
keeps you on your toes, which I like. You're never bored with tennis when you're filming it.
What's the most? I think my most unique is field hockey, but what's the most unique sport you've covered or broadcasted?
Oh my gosh, I didn't know I wish we had field hockey. I played field hockey in high school, but
Oh.
I would say our most niche sport is probably that's interesting to I would say we don't have a gymnastics team, we have acrobatics and tumbling,
Hmm.
which is really cool to watch. Those girls are so strong. Those women are just lifting each other up like and then they're lifting another person up on top of that other person and it's like the amount of skill and like coordination that they have is insane. So we have meets at home that we'll go watch and um talk to those athletes and the amount of training and the amount of like injuries that they have is wild. And it's actually a really cool sport to watch, but I would say that it's probably the most unique because they I know there's not a whole lot. I know a lot of schools have gymnastics teams, but acro and tumbling is a completely different world. And I know a lot of schools don't have that one.
Yeah, I don't even I know we don't have it, but I don't even get how some of those people do some of that stuff. It's one, it's pure muscle, and two, it's just insane. Like as you mentioned, insane to watch.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, there was a girl like bouncing on another girl's head. I'm like, aren't you in pain right now? Like, I don't know how you do this. And you do the meet and you do practices. So you're doing this like 7 days a week. Like, those women amaze me, I will say.
And hey, that's the stories we get to tell, though, is the other side that people don't really get to watch so much.
Exactly. So being able to give them a little more of a public eye is really cool to be able to do.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned you played field hockey, so I have to ask this question because every now and then I'm calling the game on Big Ten Plus, and a former player will come up at halftime to talk to us. And we've gotten this response a few times, and we're like, "Hey, why was this whistle blown here? Does anyone like understand every single rule of the sport?"
I would say when you're playing, yes, but
Okay.
sometimes it's a little confusing because there are so many different rules. Like you can't use your feet, so you don't know if it's a foot or if it's a high stick, if your stick was too high, because everything is so fast paced in field hockey. You're going, 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 and you don't know if someone's stick was high or if someone's foot touched the ball. And so you're like, you get the whistle blowing, and you're like, what did I do? Like, I don't know. Like, this could have happened 3 seconds ago, and 3 seconds goes by is a long time in field hockey. So I miss it. I'm now that I'm talking about it, I'm just I miss playing. We have like a little we tried to get a club team going and it didn't work out so well. It's like um yeah, but no, there's a lot of different rules in field hockey. That's no, you gotta definitely pay a little more attention to it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot going on. I've picked up on a good amount of it at this point. I feel comfortable calling it, but I have gotten the response a few times where they're like, it could have been anything there. So I didn't know if I was insane or what was going on there.
So I will say it's a sport that's a little tougher to track just because it's like
Mhm.
so fast paced and there's so many different fouls that you could call.
Oh, yeah.
So you're definitely not out of your wheelhouse there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But back with the partnership thing, real quick, I got one more question on that. When let's just say you're doing sideline or play by play on the radio, is that also going over Big Ten Plus as well? Is it like the same broadcast going over both streams, or how's that work?
Yes. So it's usually going over Big Ten Plus, and we'll tell our audience go check it out on Big Ten Plus, and then we'll also have people doing. Um, what's nice about our station is that there's so many people who want to be involved. Is
Mhm.
that we can have someone doing the KWVA the call on KWVA, or and we can have another team on the Big Ten Plus side. So I feel like that's the most common that happens a lot. A lot of the time we'll advertise both. And we'll say, hey, come watch it on Big Ten Plus or watch it on KWVA. So our set, a lot of times it's athlete parents that you'll find on like Big Ten Plus, and then, because you have to have a subscription for that. A lot of the college students will look to the free one, which is KWVA. So we will have both, but on the times where we can't get people on the call to do both, we'll just stick to the Big Ten Plus route.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess with this part, with the Big Ten Plus, how you mentioned it's new, it's because there's also a new conference for Oregon transitioning
Yes.
to the Big Ten Conference. So, how has that looked as a student journalist, a student reporter, transitioning to a whole new conference?
It's different. You have to learn a whole bunch of new teams.
Mhm.
I thought it was gonna be insanely hard. I was like, that's my Pac-12 home that's leaving me. Like I grew up watching the Pac-12 and was that was a really big part of picking a school for me. I was like, oh, I want to go to a Pac-12 school. And then when we got this new conference after my sophomore year, I was like, what, who are these new teams that we're in? Like, they're still big name teams. And I'm just like, that's really cool that we get to play those teams. But it's also, I have to learn everything about these new teams. Who are the coaches? Who are the players to look for? Who are, like what sport does this team excel in as opposed to like different sport? Because that's the other thing too, is like you could be a really good school in like volleyball and be absolutely horrible in basketball. And I feel like that's the thing that can be, a little tricky to navigate. It's like you can be, you know, schools aren't always the best in every sport. They could be really good at one thing and really bad at another thing. And so that's like another thing that I had to track when switching conferences is like, okay, what team is good at this sport and what team is good at this sport? So new things to navigate, but also it was big competition in the Big Ten. I feel like that allowed for some really good calls and some really good. We had a great season in the Big Ten too. Like we got a lot of championship titles, which was really nice, really fun. Um, but yeah, I honestly, something I went in so scared to ended up being a really fun season. It was probably, I'm not gonna lie, this season was probably my favorite in our athletics.
That's fair. I mean, one, that's good to hear that it was a nice transition for you, but it was pretty. It was at least a record number of Big Ten titles won for the athletic department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it was. I remember one of them being in baseball, and I'm bringing that up because it was the last season, regular season series of the year, and it was in Iowa, and I was on the call for one of those games, and it was like
Yes, the
I
Iowa
didn't
game.
feel very confident with Iowa there, to be very honest. But like, if there's a slim chance, that'd be cool. But Oregon's overall roster was incredibly impressive again.
We had a great season. I mean, up until the regional, which was another thing I'm a little bitter about.
I won't make you sit on that for too long, but I will say, I'll just say one word for you: umpires.
Yes. That is an eighth inning that I will not forget.
I'm
I think
sorry.
I know what you're talking about, but I was working directly with the team this year because I hosted a show called This Week in Oregon Baseball that aired every Tuesday. And so I was at every game, every press conference. I lived with this team and we got to the regional and that was, oh my gosh, it was so, to be in that press conference afterwards was absolutely just insane. It was everybody was you could hear a pin drop in that room because we had Anson Arrows who was ejected in the game for that call and everybody's like our season's over after that. Like everybody just kind of like you could feel the atmosphere in PK Park that was just kind of like okay, this is the straw that's kind of breaking the camel's back. And what's sad is that Anson's such a cool guy and he's so like just respectful to so much with the athletic department and is like a student advocate for so many different things within athletics. And that could have potentially been his last game because we don't know if he's coming back next season because he is graduating, but he has another year left of eligibility. So, it's one of those things where it was just like, okay, the momentum's just kind of going down from here. And it was just an absolutely crazy regional.
Yeah, and I guess just a quick question for you about Anson Arrows, and just as a preference for those listening when we're recording this, it's July 13th. So the MLB draft is tonight. Do you think he might have a chance of going at some point? Maybe not tonight, but in general.
I think he does. I think he's a insanely talented athlete. I mean, we saw him start at catcher and then move to the outfield. And when you're moving positions, like you're not expected to be super amazing in that new position. But Anson came out and I was seeing him all over my TikTok, all over my Instagram feed with all these diving catches and just robbing home runs. Like he was killing it in every spot that he was in. And not only like from that defensive side, but was also just insane on offense. Like, especially in the beginning of the season, had run after run after run, and he was just, um, a fan favorite too. The crowd liked him. I feel like that's very important when, scouts are looking is like, is he like a player that people like? Because if you're getting drafted to a team, they want to know if you're a likable player and not just can play. And so I think Anson has a pretty good shot in the draft going in. And that's another thing that depicts whether or not he comes to Oregon for another season.
Yeah, I was like last week I talked to a guy from Indiana. His name's Ben Holler, and we were talking about the draft as well a little bit. And one thing he brought up with NIL is that more guys might start coming back in earlier rounds than they used to. So I think he might be like Arrows. I think is a guy who I can go in a good round that he would still take it and go to the minors. But there's some weird things that still happen. So who knows at all? Who knows?
Yeah, we've had some athletes who were drafted as well. Like we had Mason Neville, who was drafted to the White Sox, and then he didn't take it and stayed another season. I think that probably was the best decision he could have possibly made because not only did he have NIL, but he had another season to like grow and build. And I think he's good. Like now he's one of the top prospects in the MLB draft this season. And I'm like, if he hadn't stayed at Oregon another year, he wouldn't have been able to build that platform and like maybe get a better offer from another team in the MLB.
Yeah,
So,
correct me if I'm wrong. He's a top 100 prospect. Is that correct?
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great decision there. And I guess with hosting your own show with the team, how does that compare to like covering whether it's baseball or any other sport, being with the team as constantly as you were? How does that compare covering that sport than the other sports than you were there for?
That's a good question. I feel like it allows me to have a little bit more of a team engagement. I'm able to have more, having to be at every game and like, especially with baseball where it's like 3 games in a series, or sometimes it's a 4 game series. You're spending more time with the team, more time with the coaches, and engaging more with that group, with that clubhouse. And you're able to spend more time and really learn more about each player that you're not going to get on the sideline when you're just spectating and delivering a story out of what you see. You're able to have a little bit more of a closer engagement, and I feel like that was something that was really impactful and was like, I really liked being able to work with a team closer, and that's something I want to take away into going into like football in the fall. Is like maybe I should, be a little closer with the team and follow them like um request more interviews one on one and see what I can get with them, and so that allows to give a different perspective to what you're seeing on the field and be able to be like, oh, this person is doing this and this is how they're training for this. It allows you to have a little more of an in-depth perspective.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And then you've done some writing as well, correct?
I have.
Okay, so between writing, sideline, radio, whatever it may be, how do you pick apart things from each one of your jobs and carry them over to learn in your other ones?
Sometimes it's really helpful because then you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. You're going to one game and you can write, you're able to know the what you need to write about or talk about for each outlet that I'm covering for. The tricky part there is you have to make them all different because you don't want to tell the same story 3 times. Sometimes it's easy when, like, on writing, they'll give me a specific assignment that I have to follow and have me write on a certain topic. Whereas I feel like sideline, it's a lot of, live update where you're giving, oh, this is the halftime report, this is what happened, this is what we're looking to. It's it can be a little tricky though when you're trying to make that final package and make them different. And sometimes it is trying to find two stories within one game, but that's what you'll see a lot too. Just unless it's like a game where it is like that one baseball game with ants and arrows, and that call just was the entire like the story of the entire series. You're gonna see a lot of different perspectives from different outlets of like what happened. Sometimes you will have to write a story about the other team, and even if it's not your school, and that's not what you know. A lot of students will read the stuff that is about your team. They won't want to read stuff about like um, another team that's there. But if you can find that story within there that is compelling to watch, then or listen to or read to, then people will read it. But sometimes you have to find different perspectives and different looks on the game.
Yeah, and then I believe again earlier in this you mentioned you fell in love with writing in some of your high school classes, correct?
I did.
So when it comes to writing stories compared to telling stories, so like as a reporter on TV or even during a broadcast, what are the details that are just different when you write those stories?
I think it's not too different. The details that you find, think it's the way that you tell it in the sense of, writing for the ear versus writing for the eye. That's probably the most different component to it. But I mean, I learned things from high school that, things I take away is okay, how can you hook the reader in 2 seconds? You need to be able to like visually make that engaging as opposed to like when you're speaking on air, you can start with like some sort of cheesy pickup line that like like that gets the audience engaged. I feel like that's been like my trademark this year is starting out with some sort of corny thing. Like I remember I had a Valentine's Day game where I said roses are red, violets are blue, Oregon baseball is back, and Grayson Grinsell is too, who's our pitcher. And so like you could start with silly things like that and like easily in like a sideline or report or package. Whereas writing, it's a little more you're following a structure. At least in my writing style, I feel like it's a little more structured and like but you also have to keep the audience engaged and get them hooked in that first two sentences. And it's also like following your nut graph, the who, what, when, where, why, how. So little different, but also I feel like it can be pretty similar.
Yeah, good insight there. And I mean, between all the things that we've just discussed there, all of your different jobs, but you're also a student as well. So, from your experience, how have you balanced those two worlds?
Not easily. Um, it's a little easier when you're old, you're getting older um in years, like being a junior as opposed to being a freshman where you're actually a junior, you're having classes that you really, are more focused on your major and more journalism focused as opposed to like prereqs where I'm taking science courses and math courses and I'm like, what am I doing? And I actually, so that part I feel like was harder being in like an early student, so like a freshman, an undergrad or underclassman, freshman, sophomore. My advice would be to any freshman or sophomores that it gets better. But I feel like a lot of things were able to transfer over this year. I was in a reporting and interviewing class, and I did a story for Duck TV that was like I was trying to get a little more newsy as opposed to like sportsy. Because I feel like, gotta have some variety and was able to double dip, kill two birds with one stone, finish an assignment, and also do a report that I had to do um, for Duck TV. So I feel like, as I got older in, as I became like an upperclassman, I feel like it was easier to double dip and do that kind of things to make my life easier. But also, I would like get home from a coverage at midnight and still have homework to do and not go to sleep till 3 in the morning and then wake up for class at 8. So I would say my junior year, I averaged 5 hours of sleep. So, it's not easy, especially with the amount of outlets that I do, and I definitely keep myself busy. But, I think also maintaining a social life is important. And I feel like, with being a student journalist, that could be a little limited because especially if you're going out and covering a game, you can't go watch the game with your friends. You're doing it for work, but also, it's fun to find your friends within those outlets. And that's why I think that things like Duck TV and like I know you said your program at school has become very like family based. And so it's like, you find your connections with others in those outlets and groups. And I think that that's really important to have.
Isn't it so much better when you're doing it with people who you can be friends with as well?
Yes, it changes the game for real. I know me and one of my friends in Duck TV, like we both we love covering football together. And so we'll just like football is on Saturday, so we'll just like dish out our entire week that happened when we're doing our makeup in the bathroom in the press box. Like, and we just go over our entire weeks that Saturday morning in the press box in the bathroom. And she's just like, she's my girl. I love her so much. So, I mean, those friendships are honestly going to be the ones that I take out and, take away and look back on as those my like most strongest friendships. And like, that's also you're able to build connections off of those friendships too. Like, they're working for some sort of station that you want to work at later in life. You're like, text me like, hey, I remember you were in college. You like, they're good connections to build.
Absolutely. I couldn't even tell you like all the different stories or a little bit of tea that we've dropped in the car rides on the way to a football game or basketball. But the same idea with I got to give him a shout out. It was our news director last year at our station named Johnny Voltman. He now works at a station as a producer down in Louisville, and he was real sad about leaving. So he kept telling everyone, once you guys are 2, 3 years out of college and I become like the news director there, I'm calling you all back up to work with me again so we could all be back together.
See, I love that. And that happened with our local station too. Is we had a girl who was in my position at Duck TV and ended up becoming the 11 o'clock anchor at our local station, and then moved to our like afternoon anchor. She kept getting helping up the ladder, and all of our seniors that graduated this year all texted her for jobs, and they're all working at the station together this next year. And I'm like, okay, like part of me is like, I want to get out of Oregon, and also part of me is like, oh, my friends are over here at this like local station and still staying close. I'm like, I wouldn't hate working here. So it's stuff like that. I agree. It's
Yeah,
just awesome.
it's a nice thing to have at least a bunch of people you know you can go to.
For sure.
But then there's also one other organization that I purposely left down so now, but Oregon Women in Sports Communications you're involved with. And obviously, well, I think first before I dive into a question, just flat out tell me what that is.
So Women in Sports Communication is a group of women that meet every Wednesday, sometimes every other Wednesday, that we go out and do a bunch of things together outside of all of our crazy things that we have going on. So a lot of us are in my boat where we're working for different outlets, and we're using Wednesday as a time to either, do like a resume build workshop, or we'll go watch a game together. Like if some people are able to go to a basketball game, we'll go watch the basketball game together. Just a way for us to stay connected as women together, and also have advice. We'll have guest speakers too that talk about being a woman in sports journalism or in just journalism and communications as it is. Like whether you want to go into PR or advertising, like, there's different ways that you can excel as a woman in those fields. And so, especially like you said earlier, I know you touched on that, just um how it's, you're not seeing a whole lot of women in this industry. And the I know that this um organization that we have at school really empowers us to continue like pursuing journalism or communication as a woman in a, it's a little more male predominant field. And so I think, having that outlet to be able to be like, okay, I should stick with this, there is hope and a future for me, and I should be proud to be a woman uh, in this field of work. And I think that's really awesome that we have an outlet to be able to do that and empower each other.
Damn straight. That's all I can say right there. And then, I mean, I might commit a little bit of a journalistic crime with a double barrel question here, but you mentioned the part where, in journalism specifically, but especially in sports journalism, very male dominated.
Yes.
So, from your experience, from everything that you've done, how have you seen that it's been unique to be a woman in sports, but also why is it important to have women in sports?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I see a lot of guys in this field because they grew up playing these sports and they know what they're taught. They like know they have a lot of thoughts and opinions on whatever sport is going on. And I love that. I just think and that's also how like I fell in love with this, is that I grew up playing softball and was very, very competitive. Was going to play in college until I got hurt, and then I'm like, what do I do? So talking about it is another great way of doing so. And I feel like those girls who did grow up in my shoes, playing a sport like softball or volleyball, I feel like they're able to add their perspective, especially on sports like volleyball, where it's like, at least I grew up in California. So many girls play beach volleyball. And so it was a very popular sport here for girls. And so I feel like, having that perspective as a woman covering volleyball is just completely different when you've played it yourself. And I feel like that goes both ways. But also being a woman covering these sports and having more women representation, it's really special just being, I hear from so many of my friends, just like, I was a girl watching this girl on TV doing this, and I just thought she was so cool. So I think being able to be a woman role model to little girls watching is also just huge in that more professional atmosphere. But also, having it both ways, like, because I know, you would want to see both guys and girls um, talking about a sport or talking about, whatever you're covering. And I think that that's also like really awesome to get both perspectives.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail right on the head there. I got to also give a shout out to my best friend, Elise Scan, who, just like you, grew up playing softball and now does what we do as well. So she works with me at our local station or our student run station as well.
That's so awesome. That's really fun being able to get that. Like, I love covering baseball with like one of my coworkers who's a guy who like grew up playing baseball and I grew up playing softball. And we're talking about the differences and like what we're seeing in this game. And I was a catcher, so I feel like being the reporter behind the scenes and trying to track the balls, like being a catcher, trying to find out like where the play is going to be at next, what to expect. And so it's really funny when we get going on something and like be like, oh, I bet you there's gonna be a double play right here. This is going to happen here, something like that. And then you're like, oh no, what if it's like this play instead? And just being able to bounce that off of each other is just, I think, is so fun.
It really is a lot of fun. It's the same way with her and me. I played baseball. My mom was a catcher growing up in
No way.
softball, so she'll tell me all the same things about being a catcher, and then she'll now tell me that her knees don't work very well.
Gosh, I already have grandma knees at 21. It's so sad.
You need me to cut that part out or no?
Oh no, it's
It's all good. It's all good. I mean,
fine.
don't need to say anything about it. Don't
You
mention
know, important part of journalism is being transparent. So I
it.
want to keep my credibility.
I got you. Don't worry. That's staying right in there. I've got plenty of stuff that hurts me for no reason. I never even had the same sort of injuries. I never was a catcher. Didn't deal with that much pain.
What position did you play?
Oh Lord. So I grew up an outfielder. And then sophomore year of high school, I started pitching. And by junior year, I was still pitching, but I was also a middle infielder.
So
Didn't
you
really
can
play the
get
outfield as much, but
that like back to what we were talking about, that little Anthony Arrows perspective of switching positions and being able to excel at different spots.
oh yeah, I think the one position I probably absolutely could not play is catcher. I don't know how you guys do it, but
It's funny because I was like the outfield, I got bored, and then as soon as it got hit over my head and I did see some action, I would have to run, and that was not my thing. Oh, it was not for me. And then the infield, funny enough, as a catcher, scared the death out of me. Like I just did not want to be in the infield. I was so scared of the infield. I played, I could play every position because that was like my secondary was a utility player, but like so I knew how to play them all. I like, you know, would do different stuff in practice. We're like, oh, you should try third base. I'm like, you should try third base next game. Like, I was like, no, I'm the hot corner. I don't think so. But what's funny enough is I've had more injuries at catcher than I have at like any other position. And like, I took myself out of playing in college because I was catching on shin guards that I had since second grade because I'm 5'2" on a good day. Like I'm not growing anytime soon. So it fit me. And I was like, I'll get team gear in college and not going to pay the absurd amount of money for new shin guards. And then I went down the block and crushed my knees and, broke my wrist at catcher, got knocked out in the head, like woke up on the bench with a bat to the head. Like it was so many injuries at catcher, and yet I was still afraid to play infield.
I don't blame you. I mean, softball hurts. My as I was saying, my best friend Elise, she was a third baseman, and she'll tell me how she still has bruises all up her legs.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a hot corner too. That you get those real fast.
Oh yeah, no, that's another position I really didn't play too much. Wow, I'm really putting myself out there is not getting the difficult spots out there. No, it's tough. I know it's very tough though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you mentioned being a role model now, like seeing other girls in the industry or being the role model for other girls. So now you're going into your senior year, you've done a lot of stuff, and honestly, there probably are young girls that are watching your stuff at this point. So if you had a message to younger girls out there that may have an interest in sports, whether it's just sports industry or sports journalism, what would your message be?
I've got two words for that, Colin, and that's do it. You got to put yourself out there and never be discouraged to do it. And, women can excel in this field and in being a journalist and even a sports journalist. Whatever you want to do, say yes to, obviously within reason. Let's not go too crazy. I'm not encouraging, bad activity, but, getting out there and doing it and do it with confidence, go out there and kill it. Just do it to the best of your ability. And, there is, you know, there's a spot for you. There's hope for you in sports journalism. And I feel like that's one of the things that I've really been able to take away is just saying yes and doing it. And even if you're scared, like I've walked into things just absolutely terrified, especially being a woman in sports. I'm like, these guys can talk about this so much like better than I have because they've played football and there's not a lot of places where you can play football as a woman, but you can still know a whole lot about it. You can be so scared walking into it, but as long as you go in there with the attitude that I own this, I can do this, and I can do it absolutely amazing, you're gonna be fine. I've had some great, the times where I've ended up the most scared have probably been the most fun experiences that I've had.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I don't think you could say it much better than that. Just going for it. And I mean, there are plenty of women in this succeeding. There's you, there's my friend Elise, there's Taylor McGregor for the Cubs. There's so many women that are
Yeah.
doing it, and it's awesome to see.
I mean, the Oakland A's got their the first female play-by-play broadcaster in baseball history. Like the platform for women is growing, and it's absolutely amazing to see. So you can be that first woman to do whatever you want to do.
And speaking of, I gotta ask how you've seen, at least maybe whether it's at Oregon or just in general, women in this industry grow.
Oh my gosh, it's been amazing to see women in this industry grow. Like whether that's, I feel like it's been a lot of earlier it was the shift of sideline reporters, like the people interviewing athletes. More women were able to get into that position. Now you see a whole lot of women being like interviewing athletes after games, and now, like I mentioned with the A's play-by-play broadcaster, she's a female. And just being able to see more women in those positions and seeing more women come into Duck TV at school has been absolutely awesome. I'm also helping my professor monitoring those emails of like the people who want to be in the program, and seeing so many more, like more and more women um, join and being able to be on, you know, the leadership board for Duck TV. And those girls seeing like a woman in that spot be like, oh, I can get to that point too. Just being able to like be that on such my small platform, like a smaller platform at school, and encouraging more girls to pursue journalism because they can see me like doing the same opportunities that my other coworkers who are guys can do is just like that is so fulfilling to me. And like being able to help more girls get involved in it because they have a little interest in it and then they end up loving it and excelling in it is probably one of the most, you know, amazing things that I've seen in my job.
That is fantastic to hear right there. I'm very glad to hear all that. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
And then the do it part, I have to derive a little bit for a second. Does that a little bit come from just do it with your guys' big deal with Nike? I figure not, but
I didn't think about that until right now, until you pointed that out. So I think that's a funny little coincidence. But, gotta shout out Phil Knight for our, lovely Nike slogan and stuff that he's brought to our school. So
I figured it wasn't because of that, but I thought about it afterwards and I was like, ooh, maybe I could slide that in real quick.
it's a good thing to slide in. Good connection.
Thank you, thank you. But I guess we've talked about the women's side of it, but in general, for student journalism, when people are looking to read a story, let's just say the Anson era situation, and you were covering the team all year long, why would it be interesting for someone to go look at your story compared to the professional outlets? So why is it important to pay attention to student journalism?
Because I feel like student journalists can relate in a way to those athletes that some professionals can't do. They get that they go to school. We go like us student journalists go to school with these people and like are able to see like whether it's like talking to someone like Anson in class or like seeing how they work on the daily, like you can see that like I have a lot of friends who are athletes, and they're like, "Oh, I have to do the after class. I have to go to tutoring." So athletes have to go to tutoring a certain amount of times a week, and then they have to like go to this training. They have to go to conditioning, and then they do this. Like they have so much on their plates that we get to see that a lot of people don't get to see on the outside. And so If they're training for something um, that's really cool or trying to break some sort of record, we're going to know about that beforehand and, be able to get that perspective that you won't see on the outside. We get to see a little bit more of a personal perspective. And that's something that I was able to gain with being a student at Oregon. I was able to get that, like my show every week with the baseball team. And that's something that you won't see from some professional platforms. And I think that's really cool that there's some things that you can do as a student journalist that other professionals won't get to do.
Absolutely. And then with, I mean, just everything you've done that we've already had the mention of like, some of your favorite stories and everything, but a chance here, I'm gonna keep this very broad, but maybe with one of your favorite moments that you tell people about from your years at Oregon.
Ooh, that's a big question. Um, I think just being able to see my growth from being a human physiology student freshman year, not knowing what I wanted to do, to being able to work to be where I'm at. Like the position that I have with like running Duck TV specifically, and as well as, just being involved in the other outlets. Being in my spot at Duck TV was something that was for seniors originally. Like when I was a freshman, a senior was in my spot. And I was told that I was going to be the person, I was told that I was going to be in the position that I am as a sophomore at the end of my sophomore year. And I had no idea that I was going to like end up liking journalism, end up like liking Duck TV and like switching that route. So being able to see my growth and like just hard work that I have put in, and that's to say that that didn't come. That's not to say that that did not come with hard work because it definitely did. And so I love programs like the outlets that I work with where they emphasize that you get what you put into it. You get out of it what you put into it. And I feel like that's also a message that's like very important to, convey to others is that you get what you put into it. And I think some of my favorite moments are just like looking back at like me being so scared going into like my first day at Duck TV to like being at a spot like the Rose Bowl where like I got to meet some of my favorite people who I look up to in the sports journalism world, like Holly Rowe. I met her at the Rose Bowl. It was like, Holly, I love you. I want to be you. Like, I think that that's just being able to look back and be able to appreciate the moments that I have right now is probably my favorite memory.
I love hearing that. And I think a big thing with student journalism or just this industry in general, whether you've got 5 followers, 500,000, or just starting out, whatever, is connection. So, an opportunity for you here to give a shout out to yourself and anything for people to look at after they've listened to this.
For sure. Connect like you've talked to someone for 5 seconds, ask them if they've got a LinkedIn or, can connect with them further. You like, trying to maintain those connections. Like, oh, this is so cool that you do this. I'd love to talk to you more. And, not being afraid to be social, especially in this industry. I feel like being social is a very key component.
I know I've had to break out of my shell quite a few times. I used to be such a quiet kid at the beginning of high school, but by the end of it, I started to break out of my shell. But an opportunity for you here to kind of plug yourself if you would like to.
Sure, would love that. My platforms are all Ashley Davidson TV. Instagram's probably where you'll find me the most, but I'm also on TikTok. Um, my email's Ashley Faith or no, Ashley Davidson TV at Gmail if you want to reach out and ask me any questions, or anything like that. Um, yeah, awesome.
Absolutely. I'll make sure I link everything where this is posted on YouTube, and I'll make sure to stay in touch with everything, especially with football season coming up. Iowa and Oregon do collide this year.
Yep, I will be watching that one for sure.
Oh yeah, it'll be a fun one. I will be there in some way, shape, or form. But I'll probably be reaching back out that maybe that week or the week before to talk about that game with you.
If we're at Iowa or you're at Oregon, definitely keep in contact with me. If I'm in Iowa, I will let you know right away.
Please do. Absolutely. I would love that.
Hold on, am I the first girl that you've had on your show?
Yes, and here's okay, now I have to
Yes.
I have to like almost save myself because this would be episode 9 of the podcast, right? Which so it took a while. When I started this out, I sent out a bunch like mass emails because I didn't know if I was gonna really get responses. It's beginning of the summer. People might not check their emails as much. I don't know if people were interested in this idea. So I sent out probably like 25, 30 emails. I got a bunch of like non-responses, obviously, but I was looking back after and I didn't realize it. I sent probably, I think it's like one more compared to it, but like one extra like female email than like to men on it. So like I sent emails out to more girls than guys, and I got no responses. And I was like, oh no, this makes me look so bad.
Really? I am so honored to be first woman on your podcast. It is so awesome. I was watching the other episodes and I was like, oh, I might be able to be the first girl on this podcast. It's so awesome. So I love how you're reaching out for the female representation.
Absolutely, because it's all sides of it, right? There's not just one person that does this, and there's not just one story to tell.
Exactly. I agree with that. That's so awesome.
So I'm very glad you were able to share your story. I'm glad for the quick response and being able to set aside this time for me today.
No, of course. I think this is so cool. I think being able to share the voices of student journalists is a really cool concept, and just seeing the behind the scenes stuff is, things that people don't get to see instead of just a name on an article or just a face on TV is so cool to be able to share this. So I really like what you're doing here, Colin.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And for yourself, again, thank you. You're going to be amazing. You're doing a lot of great stuff. And if you couldn't tell just through this podcast or watching some of your other stuff, got a really bright future.
Thank you so much, Colin. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure to follow Ashley on everything. She's covering one of the best athletic departments in the entire country, not to mention representing women in sports journalism very well. If you want to stay up to date with all the upcoming episodes of The Student Beat, make sure to follow me on Twitter at C_Carithers33. We just walked The Student Beat. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode.